This is a presentation of National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasters, 70 weekly shows, and a 3.4-star rating on Roku TV. The Big Football Show every Sunday at 8 a.m. on Roku at 4 p.m. How we doing today? It's Sunday. It's a Big Football Show with Mac, Jack, Sonia, and James. Sonia is not in today. She will be back, I think, next week, if I'm not mistaken. She's taking care of some personal business. But you got the three guys here. We got some very great guests coming up today. We got Keith Ankle scheduled, covers our college football sports and among other things, and the Philly sports guy. He's scheduled to drop in at the second part of the week. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jack. Good morning, James. There's some really good stories out there in the NFL. We'll take care of that first. We'll take care of some of the bigger stories after that. But I want to get to this 18-game schedule that people are talking about that's probably coming in. And Stephen Jones from the Dallas Cowboys, the president who is on the committee, the competition committee, he says it's inevitable, guys. He says that because of the revenue alone, that they're going to have an 18-game schedule in the near future here. What's included in this, from what I'm reading, is that there will be an extra bye week for all teams. This is what they're trying to do. For all teams in week 13 during the Pro Bowl, like they do in other sports, when they have the all-star team, everybody takes a break. So this is what's in the thought process and pushing the Super Bowl out to President's Day weekend, which is a 3-day weekend, which means Sunday you can watch the NFL, and Monday the employers don't have to worry about you not making it into work all there on time. So, when I was actively working, I would go in late to the next, I make it in, but I'd be up there watching, and especially if my team was in the Super Bowl, well, heck, I was having a great time. So I did make it in, but I didn't make it in on time. I would want your thoughts on this. Okay, they talk about the NFL football players and injuries and concussions and all this stuff, but yet they're going to add this extra game, but give them an extra week off. What do you guys think, Jack? What do you think about this kind of process that they're going to do?
Well, I guess, this being the headline, the extra week, I mean, it's a little bit of a slow day in sports. But I'll say this, though, the football season goes basically 4 months before the playoff round, September, October, November, December. Compare that to baseball that goes 6 months before they start their playoffs. So the NFL knows they can hold interest for longer than a few months before the playoffs. So they're adding games. It's not going to stop at 18. Eventually, it's going to get up to 20, and it's just going to expand a little. And they might do away with the exhibition games altogether at some point. And the coaches will just have to determine their rosters based on training camp, film, et cetera, et cetera.
Keith, you're shaking your head. James, I'll come right there. Keith, you're shaking your head already. And I love it when I ask Jack a question. He always gives me a snooty remark right to start it off with. So thank you for that, Jack. So Keith, what are your thoughts about adding a week? Having a week off during the Pro Bowl game, and then extending the Super Bowl to President's Day.
As far as the week off and the Super Bowl, I guess it's fine. I mean, it's the way we're heading. People, want it to be. So there's a day off the next day and whatever. So not everybody's going to have it off, by the way. My problem is doing away with exhibition games. I mean, I get it. They're not exciting to watch necessarily, but they're necessary evils because how much bad football do I have to watch the first half of the season? Right now, you get in training camp, they barely hit each other. So we're going to play no exhibition games. They're not going to play any real football till week 1. And I'm going to get bad football for 6 or 8 weeks. And it's bad enough now the first month of the season, and I think it's only going to get worse if you put this plan into place. I understand it's all about the money, which is, just follow the money. We know why they're doing this. But as far as pushing out the Super Bowl, fine. We kept pushing it. I don't have a big problem with that.
So James, I mean, do you agree with what Keith's saying? Listen, I'm a big advocate of preseason. I think there should be 4 full preseason games, in my opinion, because there's nothing. I don't care how many scrimmages you have; it's not game situation. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, in regards to preseason, I'm with you both. I think you should have preseason because it's not only trying to get your team together and make sure that you have your I's dotted and T's crossed. You're trying to find those diamonds in the rough, and those guys are trying to make teams. Those guys, now they really can't audition anymore because you're taking their chances away of getting. I mean, you got you go back to the Giants. You don't have a what's the kid's name that used to do the salsa dance in the end zone, the wide receiver.
Victor Cruz.
Yes,
yeah.
He was an undrafted free agent. If you didn't see that game against the Jets where he scored 3 touchdowns, and who's that kid? You don't know he plays because in the preseason because he's probably not going to make the team. So you're going to make sure you're going to put a starter in front of him. So yes. I agree with Jack. It's probably going to happen. They're probably going to eliminate preseason games, but it's a travesty. And then to have an extra bye week, sure, you can have an extra bye week, but you're still adding another game to where it's to a grueling sport, where these guys, their bodies are day in and day out being brutalized. And so, and then with injuries, if you look at the past few seasons, injuries are ridiculous, to what's happened now. So I don't know. I'm not for the extra game, but like Jack said, it's probably going to happen, and it's not going to stop there either.
And great points all the way around. Keith, we're going to get a little college football. There was a few college stories in there. We'll start off with Georgia dismissing a defensive back, David Savan, after reckless driving incident. Of course, Kirby Smart has been, they're public with him. There's more scrutiny. Why isn't he doing anything about these players? And if he is doing something, it's not enough. This defensive back is not a starter. He's a special teams extra defensive back on coverage. If that's one of his stars, I don't think he gets dismissed.
Not based on history. I can't argue with you. I mean, we talked about this, I think, on Friday, and this is the way teams and programs spiral into lack of institutional control charges, right? Because you just let people slide and slide and slide, and at some point, and he's going to have to get tougher. I mean, again, we talked about these things probably happen more often than we know about around the NCAA in different programs, and they're not, the high profile programs like Georgia, so we don't hear about them. But when you're that high profile, you have got to take control of these things. Again, we talked about the fact that these kids, you can't watch these kids 24/7. I get that, but once they do make a mistake, you've got to hold them accountable. And Georgia's got a bad track record the last 4 or 5 years, and Kirby's going to find himself in a jackpot at some point if he doesn't get a handle on this, I think.
A couple stories about Nick Saban. Of course, they renamed the stadium after him, which is a great honor. Of course, if there's a coach that deserves that honor in college, it would be Nick Saban. Do you agree with it, or do you think it should have stayed the way it is because it's history, or the way I mean, I know Lambeau Field, they tried to take it away, they brought it back, and of course Lambeau was one of the greatest coaches in the NFL. People don't talk about him a lot, but are you with that decision, Keith, or do you think maybe they should have stayed what it was?
I'm okay with it. Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach of all time. In my mind, there's no doubt about it, and there's barely an argument. Now, I would still try to find a way to honor Bear Bryant. It's Bryant-Denny Stadium right now. I would still find a way to honor them. Teams, programs have found a way to do this, right? Basketball, I know, for instance, they'll name a coliseum, the whole where they play after one person and the court after somebody else. So there's ways to still honor these guys, and I don't think this in any way really denigrates Bear Bryant's legacy, but it honors the guy who, I'm sorry, bypassed Bear Bryant and is the greatest coach in college football history.
But Bear Bryant, you can argue, was more iconic in his time than Nick Saban was in his. I'm not talking about accomplishments here per se. I'm talking about who was considered more iconic. For example, Vince Lombardi absolutely was more iconic than Bill Belichick ever was. Absolutely, not even close as far as being iconic. I'm not talking about accomplishments, and that's got to be considered. But I think it's a case whenever a great coach or a great player, whatever, either retires or dies, everyone's always hurrying for name change. They want to find a way to honor them. They kind of forget about some of the greats in the past, and they're going to want to replace the name. I think that happens in, all sports and really in all walks of life to a degree.
It does, and I don't want Bear Bryant to be forgotten. He was a great football coach, and did have a lot of impact on the game outside of just his accomplishments. I mean, he did it forcibly, basically, but he was, integral in integrating the SEC and get black players. But he didn't do it until he got embarrassed at home by USC with a bunch of black stars on their team. So, I mean, he went kicking and screaming a little bit. But yes, I agree. There's different reasons. Lombardi's a great point. I mean, one of the reasons the NFL was growing to what it got to be was Lombardi and those Green Bay Packers. Not just Joe Namath winning the Super Bowl, but Lombardi's Packers helped make the NFL what it is today as well.
Well, I'll piggyback on what Jack says, because I think he brings up a great point. I mean, if it was just by accomplishments alone, the Vince Lombardi Trophy would not exist. The Jerry West emblem would not exist in the NBA. And that's why I asked you, Keith, and to me, Jack's point is very good. There's no debating Nick Saban is maybe the best coach. I mean, you could debate the best football coach, period, ever. But, sometimes when you change things, you lose something from the past, which me being the way I am, old school, I hate to say that, say that. So Jack's point is
as well, as you know. So I don't say this lightly. I mean, again, I don't want to, erase the memory of the great things Bear Bryant did either.
Okay, so we have a new head coach who went to Alabama, the former head coach of Washington. He says he will confidently will be able to fill Nick Saban's shoes. So maybe he wins 7, championships, and maybe we change the name of the stadium again. But anyway, listen, these are big few shoes to fill, and this type of offense over there in Washington, of course, is not the same. I mean, Nick Saban did experiment with passing, but mainly, Alabama's known for running you over. How do you think that's going to play there? Is that going to? I would imagine he's going to bring in more passing schemes in that into Alabama, and you're playing in an SEC that's very physical, and a lot of teams depend on the run. How does that affect his coaching and his win and loss percentage going forward? We're just throwing it out there in the future. But what are your thoughts on that, Keith?
There's definitely going to be a different approach, to the way they play the game to some extent. Kellen DeBoer is a really, really good head coach, but following anybody of the stature of Saban is very difficult. Following guys of lesser stature than Saban has been difficult. Following Bear Bryant at Alabama was difficult until Saban got there. People forget. They think, Saban just coached Alabama. Anybody can coach them to 7 titles. Well, about 12 guys in between didn't do it. Gene Stallings had some success, but other than that, they had a bunch of failures. So this is going to be a very tough coach, or tough position for a very good head coach. He'll get a little, I'd like to say he'll get a honeymoon period here the first year. But, if he wins 8 games this year, he better go out and win a national championship next year, or at least compete, or he's going to have some problems in Alabama. And I think he's a really good head coach. I think he will figure it out.
I think he's a really good head coach too, but I know a lot of good coaches that even good NFL coaches have gone into SEC and kind of got knocked out of it. So it's a tough division. So anyway, I hope he does well. What can I tell you? Anything about as far as recruiting? The recruiting will change too, Keith. If he's going to go, he'll be looking for more wide receivers instead of running backs, and maybe not as big dominating offensive linemen. I imagine he'll try and keep the defense basically the same, but recruiting will change too, I would think.
Well, recruiting's already been changing in the SEC because historically they were doing very well in Florida, which is what hurt the Florida schools the last 15 or 20 years. Well, 10 years anyway. But this has become more of a national recruiting base anyway, as these leagues expand from coast to coast almost. And this SEC now goes all the way to Oklahoma, right? And probably is going to grow again here in the next few years. I think it helps because you've got a larger recruiting base to go from, and you're not going to just be looking in your region anymore. Nobody's looking just in their region. But they'll look for different types of kids. And again, that's going to be, the transfer portal's there, and that's fine. But you still need to be able to recruit to be able to win consistently in a league like the SEC. Any league. Any league.
Yeah, definitely.
Deion's going to find that out pretty soon if he doesn't start doing some recruiting out there in Colorado and just not rely on the transfer portal.
Yes. So let's get to some NFL, some notes here. Lawrence Taylor is arrested and charged with failing to report as a sex offender again. This comes from way back when in, I think it was 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he pled guilty to a misdemeanor. It was from hiring or using a prostitute. What is it? I forget the exact term they use. She was only 16. Told him that she was 19. So he's on the sexual offender registry, and this is the second time. This is embarrassing to allege him something like this comes out. LT is arguably the best defensive player in the history of football. But as you know, his off-field antics got him in trouble when he played, and they get him in trouble now again. So this is I would say, would be more embarrassing maybe than anything else. But that's one of the stories out there. If you guys got any comments on that.
LT's a guy, great player, right? Not a good person. And he's another guy who's never really addressed his issues off the field. When he had a drug issue and he was suspended for that, he did his own rehab on the golf course. He didn't really go get the help that he probably should have gotten. And I think that's and maybe that's because of, the way he might have been treated differently. We talked about Georgia and Kirby Smart. I'm sure that Lawrence Taylor got some passes through his career, whether it be high school, at North Carolina, and even with the Giants. And then when he got in trouble, I don't think it was addressed the way it needed to be anytime he's got in trouble.
I would agree. The stars on teams do get a little preferential treatment, as we all know. And LT did have his problems. The Baltimore Ravens agreed to a deal with Pro Bowl safety Eddie Jackson. He wasn't a Pro Bowler last year, but he was a Pro Bowler with Chicago for a couple years. This will help them a little bit, depending on how well he plays in the defensive secondary. In Baltimore, believe it or not, some of the bigger questions this year are on defense, with the defensive coordinator leaving, Clowney leaving, a couple of players leaving that were there last year. Clowney had one of his best years in a long time with the Ravens last year. So some of the biggest questions on Baltimore, again, is their defense. So that's one thing they did to adjust that. J.J. McCarthy, another rookie quarterback, signs. He signs for a four-year, $28+ million guaranteed contract, rookie contract. Again, the big question is who's going to be the starting quarterback come maybe week 6 there. I mean, I think Sam Darnold will get the nod to begin, but if J.J. McCarthy is, looking good in practice and Sam Darnold has a bad game or two, how fast, you guys, do you think J.J. McCarthy gets in?
I don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to be the starter to start the season in 2025, let alone 2024. I think the Vikings are going to have a predicament. I think Sam Darnold's going to have a good year, and they can't just replace Sam Darnold, because the reality is going to be Sam Darnold was once the number 3 overall choice in the draft, higher than J.J. McCarthy. And if he's playing well, I know the Vikings are a little antsy to get J.J. McCarthy in there, developed, but they're going to look at the cold reality of the situation. Would he be a better option than Sam Darnold? If Sam Darnold performs the way I think he will, that's the whole question. If Sam Darnold doesn't show any improvement, he's so, yeah, of course, J.J. McCarthy will see the field. I mean, and if there's an injury, of course, that changes everything. But the Vikings, but imagine this, if the Vikings have a scenario where Sam Darnold gets injured very early in the season and they don't think J.J. McCarthy's quite ready, did they go to Nicky Mullins, the other backup who has experience starting? But you throw J.J. McCarthy in, and chances are he's not going to perform well. That hurts not only his confidence a little, but the confidence of the fan base and the whole franchise in J.J. McCarthy.
I'm interested in your two reactions to what Jack said. I don't know what gives Jack the impression that Sam Darnold is going to play better than what he's played in his past years as playing as a quarterback, starting on another team. I mean, do you see anything, Keith or James, that would point that Sam Darnold will improve so much that he will not only play this year, the starting, but the following year? I don't see anything with that.
No, unless the Vikings are just willing to punt the season, then to let J.J. McCarthy sit and learn the game a little bit. But I don't see any evidence to think Darnold will be shoulders above anybody, much less J.J. McCarthy for the long haul. For the entire season and in the next season.
I think at this juncture, he's a bridge quarterback. And clearly, they drafted a first-round quarterback for a reason. If he doesn't succeed, like you said, Mac, on the first couple of games, they sit him and allow this kid to.
Well, let me throw it to you another way, James. Okay, let's say, and keep Mac. Let's say Sam Darnold performs the way Baker Mayfield did. And Baker had his opportunities. We weren't thinking of him as being a starting quarterback anymore, but he got the opportunity at Tampa Bay, similar to what Darnold's getting in Minnesota. Let's say Darnold performs on a Baker Mayfield level. And let's say J.J. McCarthy was in the Buccaneers. Do you think they'd be rushing Baker Mayfield out of there for J.J. McCarthy? As long as Baker Mayfield performs well, he's going to be the quarterback going forward. What I'm saying is the Vikings are going to have a problem if Sam Darnold performs really well. I mean, this isn't Jacoby Brissett, who we know isn't a starting NFL quarterback. We know Drake May absolutely is going to start, maybe not by the end of this year, but certainly next year. They're not going to have that much patience with, Jacoby Brissett, even if he performs well. But Sam Darnold's a little different. He's young. He was drafted highly. He has a lot of potential still.
And 6 years later, he was, still has.
I saw him as a backup. He was a backup with the Niners last year. He wasn't going to see the field. And I saw him drive the Niner offense down the field, and he looked really good, when he got in a little bit last year.
46.
I would say, Jack, that Baker Mayfield has had much more success than Sam Darnold.
I would agree.
I think it's a leap to say he could even perform close to Baker Mayfield's performance last year. And I would also argue that Jacoby Brissett and other bridge-type quarterbacks would have been better choices than Sam Darnold around the league.
Well,
I was just going to say that.
Let me just say, when the Jets guys drafted Zach Wilson, number 2 overall in the draft, they were going to draft a quarterback. it wasn't a slam dunk. Even Joe Douglas said, I could go either way on this. I'm not sure. But he kind of felt Sam Darnold needed a change of scenery. And you're never going to go that high again, was his logic, number 2 overall in the draft. That's why teams sometimes draft a quarterback, even with the Bears. Let's say hypothetically, guys, if the Bears' first round selection was number 9 overall, they got number 9, but not number 1 overall. They couldn't get Caleb Williams. They would have stuck with Justin Fields. I mean, chances are they weren't going to take
No, if I'm not mistaken, they got rid of Justin Fields before the draft, right? Didn't they give?
Because they were going to get Caleb Williams, Mac. They knew that.
Right.
But the point is they did get rid of Justin Fields. Sam Darnold has
an easy decision, but it wasn't an easy decision.
Sam Darnold. I'm just telling you what happened, Jack. Sam Darnold has had other chances besides with the Jets, Jack. And he had the Panthers. He couldn't hold on to the starting position there. He goes to San Francisco. He plays in a game that really doesn't mean nothing. I'm not saying Sam Darnold's a bad quarterback. I'm just saying he's not going to be your starting quarterback for the next 2 years. That's not why they got him. They got him.
We don't know that.
I'm telling you that they didn't get J.J. McCarthy for Sam Darnold to start next year, Jack.
They got J.J. McCarthy because they want McCarthy to be their franchise quarterback. That's agreed, but you're drafting him that highly. I'm just saying Darnold is a live quarterback. It's not a Jacoby Brissett bridge situation over there where he's absolutely.
In my opinion, Jacoby Brissett has played a lot longer as a better body of work than Sam Darnold. In my opinion.
Correct, but he doesn't have the better body of potential.
How do you with an older quarterback that has not held on to a starting football job grade his potential, Jack?
It's his 7th year, and even Keith could tell you as a college football guru, Sam Darnold did not play much in college. So he was kind of developing as a pro. He didn't have a big college body of work. He was kind of learning along the way in the NFL. I mean, had he had more college experience, things may have been different. And now he's been in the league 6 years. He's ready, I think, to take off.
Mark Sanchez had less experience than Darnold in college, and he didn't have great success, but compared to Darnold, it's great success. So, again, yes, you're right. He didn't have a lot of experience, but I think we've seen enough of Sam Darnold to know who and what he is in the NFL.
I would agree with that. Jack would not, but that's okay, Jack.
I love it when he throws 3 touchdown passes and leads the Vikings to a win week 1. I mean, I don't know who they're playing week 1, the Vikings. So I thought they might be playing the Giants. So they
are. So there you go. The great Jets pick, Sam Darnold against the great Giants pick. Hopefully,
Giants have a good defense. They got a good defense.
Don't try and get on my good side now, Jack.
But on your calendar, Mac, the first show in October, we need to have this conversation again. And see.
We definitely will. We definitely will.
We'll remember. I'll remind you guys.
Derrick Henry, of course, went to the Baltimore Ravens. He estimates that he spends $240,000 on body maintenance. That includes a personal chef, muscle regeneration with massages. He sits in a sauna and a oxygen thing he gets. He takes IVs 3 times a week for minerals and for vitamins. So he takes this very seriously, and maybe the reason why he's been in the league so long and carrying the ball that much. So here's a guy. I don't know what Brady's regimen was and what it cost him, but that's a lot of money.
That should cost more than $250,000 a year, would be my guess.
You think so? I don't know.
It's intriguing pick up by the Ravens. It might take some pressure off Lamar Jackson, who likes to run a lot. Are the Ravens going to change their style a little and gear a little towards the running game? I mean, Lamar Jackson, we don't think of him as a pocket passer, even though he's a little underrated in that aspect. Lamar Jackson takes off. I mean, he's the best. People ask me who's the best running back in football. If you could call a quarterback a running back, Lamar Jackson is the best runner in football.
No, I don't agree with that, and I don't think the
gonna-
Ravens. Okay, we'll let Keith get to his show. Keith, thanks for stopping in. TGI Sports Talk, Keith Angle.
I'll leave you with this. I spent $250,000 on maintenance as well for my body. It's all on beer though, so I'm not.
Well, hey, listen, it's working, Keith. It's working. Just to let you know. All right, thanks, Keith. There you go, Keith Angle. TGI Sports. Go ahead.
You
Jeff.
mentioned, Mac, with the maintenance and everything Derrick Henry's doing. You wonder for his style of play, a big bruising running back. Do they want all that to be lighter, this and that? Obviously, you need the explosive speed. You need the strength. But he's like a John Riggins type running back, plow straight ahead. I don't know if it's all that, going to be as helpful as he thinks it will. It's not like he's a Saquon Barkley type being elusive and cutting back and forth. He's basically a straight ahead runner. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
Well, I guess this is a regimen he's been doing, and he did have some good stats last year, even at his age of 30 years old. I think he's John Riggins, but Riggins was faster than what people thought. He did run a 4.4 40 coming in, but I think I don't know if you would call him elusive. He doesn't have to be elusive like a Saquon Barkley, which maybe stops the injuries too. I mean, he's not getting hit while he's cut and that he's, I'll take you on and straight arm you and throw you out of bounds. Go ahead, Jay.
Can I ask you this, guys? Maybe you were going to mention this later, Mac. Ryan Tannehill, his teammate who was the quarterback on the Titans for years, has anyone picked him up? No one talks about him. He would be a perfect backup for some team.
I agree. I don't think anybody's picked him up yet, though.
No,
I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
not
And
that I
if
know.
you're Andy Dalton, is he still in the league, or did he retire, Andy Dalton?
I think he's a backup. I think he's a backup somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. I think he still is a backup with the last team he was on, whatever that was. I really don't follow Andy Dalton, but I think he still is in the league, believe it or not. So, yeah, I mean, listen, it's a good backup, experienced backup really pays dividends out there. So, it's a big market. People are making money just being backup quarterbacks like they never have in NFL history.
No, but the Ryan Tannehills and Andy Daltons, who've been a starter for a lot of years, they're looking for a spot where they can start again. They're looking like for an opening. I mean, it's a little different with a Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is Patrick Mahomes' backup. Obviously, he's not seeing the field barring an injury. He knows it, but he's kind of trying to reset his career, be a little stable. And these other quarterbacks, they look at Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, the way these guys reclaim starting positions, and Sam Darnold, who happened to land in the perfect situation for now, at least with the Vikings, where he could start.
But do you really feel, Jack James, do you really feel Andy Dalton really wants to be a starter again? I don't think he does. Do you, James? I think he's 34, 35. I think he's more Joe Flacco. I'm there. I'm ready to go if you need me. I think that would be his mentality.
He said out of his own mouth when he was in New Orleans, I'm here to be the backup to Jameis Winston. Now, the coach made a decision to start him, but he said I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but I think every competitive person wants to play, but I think in like Tiger Woods' situation, do you know at this juncture where you are in your career, where do you belong? Some guys I think have to understand that that's a fine line knowing, I want to be out there. I still have that fire in me to want to be a starter, but has my skill set or eroded a little bit to the point to where I can be a serviceable backup and still play this game when like a game or two and come in and fill in if need be. I think it's more so that with Andy Dalton.
James, don't take all those words to heart. Obviously, Andy Dalton's not going to go to New Orleans and say, I want to start over James Winston. He's thinking that, believe me. Carson Wentz, on the other hand, he knows there's not a chance of him unseating Patrick Mahomes. So, of course, he's going to mean it, Carson Wentz. I'm here just to help the team reset, And he can't say in the event of an injury, I'm going to be ready. That's a dirty word to use. And it's same with Mitch Trubisky with with Buffalo backing up Josh Allen there. He knows he's not going to start at Buffalo. But if you have a James Winston as your starter, he's going to think along those lines. Even now, James Winston, he's with the Cleveland Browns. He's backing up Deshaun Watson. They know Watson's going to start because of what he's getting paid. It depends what team you're going to, like the mindset. You look for like an opening.
I don't know. I kind of agree with James. I don't think he's looking to start. And he had plenty of chances with the Cincinnati Bengals. Very talented team. When he was starter over there, a lot of people picked them as Super Bowl favorites, and they never could get past it. A lot of people blame the Red Rifle for that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he got to the playoffs a lot. They'd always get eliminated in the first game.
Yeah.
But he did have success. I mean,
I would agree with that as a starting NFL quarterback.
But I see your point, Mac, about Flacco. You make a good point. In the case of Joe Flacco, he's at the stage of life. His kids are getting older. I think he'd be happy to just be on a franchise, be on a team, wear the uniform, have his kids see him in practice, make a few million a year, and it's just a job. It's not like a big deal, but like if a Joe Flacco type goes, and I'm just going to throw a team out there for the heck of it, the Washington Commanders, they all know Jaden Daniels is the guy. So that means they're content to be a backup. But when they go to a team where that doesn't have a true franchise quarterback, that competitive urge is still there to play.
I don't know, Jack. I think you really don't pick the team you want to go to when you're in that position. If a team is willing to sign you as a backup quarterback, I think if you want to play or have a chance at playing, you go. I don't think that, like if, for instance, if the San Francisco 49ers called up Ryan Tannehill or Joe Flacco or any available player out there, I think they're just happy to go. If the Carolina Panthers call them up, and Carolina Panthers call them up and say, "Hey, we need you as a backup," I think they're going. They want.
But there's a difference involved, okay? And James could comment on this. If they go to the 49ers, and we're not talking injuries here, assuming there are no injuries, which you can never assume, of course. If they go to the 49ers, they know they're not playing. No one's unseating Brock Purdy. They know they're content to be a backup. A team like the Panthers, they know the Panthers are starting Bryce Young, but they also know there's a possibility you get to the midway point of the season, and if Bryce Young is playing terribly, which is a possibility, they'll get to see the field.
They get to see the field, but they still know at that juncture of their career that they're not going to come out there and just light it up like they once did when they were like we're talking about the Red Rifleman with the Bengals era. He just at this juncture in his career, he's not like a Flacco where he can come in and light it up. I don't think he's just that good anymore.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Let's talk about the Jets and the Giants, the backup. So Tyrod Taylor goes to the Jets. Do you think Tyrod Taylor thinks he's going to play barring an injury? They know Aaron Rodgers is the guy no matter what. The Giants, Drew Lock goes to the Giants. They might get a point in the season where the Giants move on from Daniel Jones. It's his last year guaranteed money. If he's performing poorly, they might take a shot with Drew Lock in, let's say, the 10th, 11th game of the season.
I'll tell you the only flaw in that, Jack, is that you saw what happened during, and we're going to give a Hard Knocks update later. The only problem with that, they got rid of Saquon Barkley in part because of Daniel Jones. They said they shouldn't be a $40 million quarterback handing off to a $12 million running back. So I don't think if he pays poorly or not, I don't think Daniel Jones is coming out bar injury. And I don't think that Drew Lock is an experienced. He's no Tyrod Taylor, Jack. He's not experienced enough to go in there and wow him. I don't think it really matters. Drew Lock was they thought the best available backup quarterback next, and I think
he would get his opportunity if Drew Lock was competing with Geno Smith for the starting job when he first came to Seattle. Then Drew Lock came down with COVID. It was a setback. Geno Smith played well, and I see what you're saying, but this is the last year that the Giants absolutely have to give Daniel Jones his guaranteed money. They can afford to move on from him at some point. If Daniel Jones is performing poorly, the fan base, there's going to be unrest. They're going to be calling for Drew Lock to be given an opportunity. And the Giants, and let me tell you, Saquon Barkley's having a great year with Philadelphia, and the Giants are struggling offensively. Wow, it's going to get ugly with the Giant fan base.
Well,
I'm sorry.
that's a totally
I'm
different
sorry,
topic.
Mac. I'm sorry. I have to agree with Mac on this one. There's no way Drew Lock sees the field, barring any injury. He was just someone, like he said, the best available that needed a job, and they threw him in there. But there's no way. I mean, he's not going to show you anything better than what he's showing you, the opportunities that he's been given with the other teams that he's played.
Well, anyways, let's continue with since you mentioned Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni is called the work in progress. Nick Sirianni, of course, a fiery coach that likes to get excited on the field or the sidelines. Jalen Hurts is more of a laid-back kind of guy. And the Eagles signing Jalen Hurts to that big contract, if something goes wrong, and we discussed this with the Philly Sports Guy, and I think you all would agree with this, if something happens this year, I don't think that Jalen Hurts is going anywhere. I think it is all going to fall back on Nick Sirianni, and if the Eagles don't have a good as expected year, I think, and doesn't do anything in the playoffs, I think this is his last year.
Yeah, guys, I don't get it. You know, Jalen Hurts seems to have the perfect personality. Even a championship game against Alabama, when he got benched for 2 and Alabama wins the game, you see Jalen Hurts afterwards, he's smiling. He looked genuinely happy. It wasn't like an act. And he supposedly was always a great teammate. Then at the end of last year, you see him sitting there sulking alone. And I don't get what it is. I mean, what are the other players' relationships with Sirianni? That could be revealing. Because if they get along well with Sirianni, but Jalen Hurts has a personality conflict, is it the play calling? I mean, what is it exactly?
Well, from what I understand
What do
is
you think,
that
James?
I think a lot of the teams after the Super Bowl run, they didn't make a good adjustments. They didn't make a lot of teams knew what they were going to do. I mean, so and he also was playing hurt. So I think there could have been a rift between him and the coach and really not making great adjustments to try to right the ship. And ultimately it went downhill from there. But I think at this juncture, they have Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore has had some success with the Cowboys, and I think I forgot who else. I think the Seahawks. We'll see how they do. That the team is still loaded. Ultimately, they just need to come together. They're still a loaded team. I think
Kelvin Moore was with the Chargers, but they did fire the whole offensive coaching staff basically over there, and they went and got Kelvin Moore. And listen, I haven't heard great things about Kelvin Moore. I really haven't. I've heard some detrimental things about Kelvin Moore. As far as the way he calls plays and stuff, that maybe he throws too much. And with Saquon Barkley, of course, I would imagine he would adjust and run the ball a little bit more, or use Saquon a little bit more than maybe he did in the past with his other running backs. But I mean, they replaced both their offensive defensive coordinator, so that excuse, Jack, is gone.
Big Fangio came over, and that's this little tiny X factor no one talks about, and the two of you are going to be very dismissive of it, but it's lurking very gently in the background. The Eagles picked up Kenny Pickett, and they gave something like a 3rd or 4th round draft choice to get him. They gave value, and that's a 4-year starter out of Pitt, who was the Steeler quarterback a little while. It didn't quite work out at Pittsburgh. But my point is this: it's obviously not going to be a competition for the starting job. It's 100% Jalen Hurts. But if Jalen Hurts continues where he left off last year, and he's struggling, and we're like 2/3 into the season, and the Eagles are struggling to make the playoffs, you might have a storyline there where Sirianni and Hurts aren't on the same page, and the fan base is restless and everything, that Kenny Pickett just might get a shot. I'm not completely dismissive of it, and you shouldn't be.
I would be. I think Kenny Pickett was terrible with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think that bringing him over there, I don't know why they let Mr. Mustache go, and leave, because I think he did a really good job over there for the Eagles.
Well, he wasn't there last year. Gardner Minshew was with Indianapolis. Yeah.
Right. I have no idea why they let him go. Sorry, it was the year before. I have no idea. He's a good quality backup quarterback, and I think that was a big mistake, and they found that out last year. And bringing Pickett to me was a PR move, Jack. He was from Pennsylvania.
No, they don't need a PR move. They thought he would be a good backup. He's got a 4-year starter. Obviously, Howie Roseman sees things different than a lot of other people. He's probably had Kenny Pickett on his radar for a while, watching him in college, being from Pennsylvania the whole bit. And he had an opportunity to get him. He couldn't draft him. Kenny Pickett went in the first round. So the Eagles weren't going to draft him. They already had a quarterback. But he had an opportunity to get him, and he got aggressive. And in this league, I don't have to tell you guys, you need a good backup. You really do, because quarterbacks get hurt. Backup quarterback's the most underrated position, I think, in the NFL.
I don't think it is anymore, because there were so many backup quarterbacks starting last year. I still disagree with you. I don't think Kenny Pickett is a good backup quarterback. I don't think he's that good a quarterback at all, to be honest with you, Jack. I saw him last year. If he was a good quarterback, guess what? They wouldn't have got rid of him. So the Steelers are there with him. The Steelers are there with him, Jack. They're watching him every practice. They're watching him every game. They didn't just say, okay, we're going to bring in another quarterback and have they say, well, we're going to bring in Russell Wilson and have a competition with you. And then we're going to bring in Justin Fields and have a competition with you for the second stringer. They said, you're out. They didn't care. So I don't agree with you that Kenny Pickett is a good quarterback. I don't
think
I'm not saying he's necessarily they see potential in him, the Eagles, that conceivably he could step in and take over. That's my point. The jury's still out on how good a quarterback he's going to be. Yeah, he lost the starting job at Pittsburgh. But keep this in mind. Keep this in mind, guys. Even though it was a first-round draft choice, Kenny Pickett originally got the Steelers job. He was in a competition with Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. And he won the competition. So he had to show them something originally.
Well, James, you want to take that?
Yeah, he was their first round pick, and I think he was the hometown hero. So they're gonna put him in regardless. But he showed enough to show that he's not a starting caliber quarterback, and it's a stretch to say he's a second rounder, but they got him, so that's just where he is right now.
Yeah, listen, I don't understand the pickup. I think Jalen Hurts, if they lose Jalen Hurts, maybe because they got Saquon Barkley, they felt good having a quarterback that can't throw. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the reason. I guess that could be part of it. Anyway,
when you look at those weapons, Mac, you mentioned Saquon Barkley in the backfield. You got Goddard at tight end. You got your wideouts, Brown and Devontae Smith. Man, he's got weapons.
And
weapons, and Jalen Hurts has great legs. He could take off and run if need be. If the offensive line holds up the Eagles, man, they're going to be really good on that side of the ball.
Absolutely.
I agree. We got a new bit we're going to do today because we're coming up at the top of the hour, and it's called Just Ask Jack. It's a trivia game we're going to be playing every week. NFL trivia.
Don't keep my record on this, please.
I'm gonna give Jack a chance during the break, as long as he doesn't cheat. I know Jack's words with the James, I'm gonna give you a shot at this too. The trivia question that I'm giving to Jack. So the question is, who is the only NFL quarterback in NFL history to have 6,000 completions? So, not yet. Don't talk. I want to give you a chance. I want the people at home to think about this. Give James a chance to. So, folks, we're going to be right back after this quick break. And Jack's going to be put on the spot and see if he can answer this question.
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
Hello, this is Paul Semendinger, award-winning author and the host of the Dr. Sem Yankee Show and the Start Spreading the News podcast. And you are watching The Big Football Show, the very best football show in the entire world. And it's here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Enjoy.
All right, so the trivia question posed to Jack is there's only one in this club. The only quarterback in NFL history to have 6,000 completions. Jack?
Well, it had to have been an old timer. I mean, no one in the modern NFL. 6,000 completions. I mean, I'm going to just take a long shot guess. I mean, chances are James has a better chance of getting this right than me. Bobby Lane. I'm going to take a long shot chance. I'm thinking of, one of the old timers.
Well, Jack, you are completely wrong. And James,
I'm not surprised I'm wrong.
maybe you can save Jack here. At least have somebody from the crew. And by the way, I had to look this up. I did not know this. Go ahead, James.
Okay, I didn't look it up. I don't know for sure if this is right, but the reason I'm going to guess this guy is because he still has the record for the completion percentage. And I say Drew Brees. I don't know for sure if that's right or not.
I knew you'd pick your own guy. I was waiting to see if Jackman would show name it. Okay, so here's the answer, folks. The only person in NFL history
he crossed my mind
in completions, the one, the only Brett Favre.
He had 6,000 completions.
The only one, Jack. I was, of course, my thought went to Tom Brady because of his longevity. It would have to be somebody that played a long time, I felt. Brady, maybe Tarkenton, maybe Unitas, who played for a lot of years. Those were the first three guys that came into my mind. Maybe Dan Faust because of, the air assault. Those are like the first four guys in my head. But Brett Favre played for a long time.
I thought of George Blanda, but he was, played till age 48, 49.
Yeah, but mainly a kicker in his later years,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it was a good question, and I thought Jack had a shot at this because it just on longevity alone. He said an old time guy. I thought he was going with a guy that played for a long time, and I thought he was going to deduce it. And I was like, damn, he's gonna get me. So, go ahead.
6,000 sounds like too many completions in the modern era. That's the thing about it. It just sounded like too many.
I think the opposite because they're allowed to throw the ball a lot more now. The defensive rules have changed, so it's a lot easier to try to get closer to those records now.
Well, if you look at Brett Favre, his teams with Green Bay, he threw constantly. When he was with the Vikings, he threw constantly. And even with the Jets when he was hurt, I remember watching him play, and that ball went up constantly. So he was just a gunslinger, and that you would have to be, I guess, that type of player to just. I know interceptions. He's among the leaders of all time too. So I mean, the good and bad with that. So anyway, so that was pretty interesting. I'm going to keep doing that. And again, Jack, I'll put you in a position where you could get the right answer there. So
well,
anyway,
James came closer than I did because at least he got a similar era. I went way, way back,
yes, you did. I was surprised how far back you went.
Yeah, listen, I was thinking him, Otto Graham, guys like that.
Yeah,
put the ball up a lot. And the statistics many, many decades ago may have been a little fudged. They might not have always been 100% accurate, too. So I thought maybe that would have helped add on to
it wasn't for the 1890s, Jack. They had film on these guys. I mean, they could go back and review the film. I mean, it's not like it was, Anyway, so we're going to play a game called You're the GM, okay? So as you know, there are some free agents that are out there right now, and there are some possible free agents because of what's going on with teams right now with contracts that might, try to force their way out, or the team might say, hey, the heck with it. We're going to see what we can get from you. So the first one I want to talk about, we were just talking about backup quarterbacks and maybe their importance now with the way there's many games. And last year there was a record amount of backup quarterbacks. Well, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tyler Heinicke is on their roster right now. And of course you have, Russell Wilson there. They just signed Justin Fields. So Tyler Heinicke is disposable, guys. So if you, and I would have to set this up for Jack with the Jets, if you didn't have Tyrod Taylor, would that be a GM? Would that be a move as a GM that you might make?
To get Tyler Heinicke?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, he would be an upgrade from what they had last year. I mean, Zach Wilson, and they brought in a couple of other guys, and Trevor Siemian. He's an upgrade. I mean, he played his share game for the Commanders. He had some success. I definitely don't want Tyler Heinicke as my starter,
right.
But in the event the quarterback goes down with an injury, he's competent, at least. I mean, to, fill in the gap time being. You're not necessarily throwing in the towel, oh, now we can't win because our starter went down. You hope you could, make it up with Tyler Heinicke as your quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, I would make the move with the Jets. Yeah, sure.
You as the Saints GM, I'm not sure who's your backup right now. Russell Wilson. I mean, who is your backup over there?
So our fourth rounder from last year, Jake Haener, is number 2. Or it's really a battle between him and Spencer Rattler right now. So we have a 4th rounder and a 5th rounder, and they're both like relatively young. And I like Jake Haener. I think he's actually pretty good out of San Diego State. And of course, Spencer Rattler, we know what he is. Hopefully he does well but they're both backup players. I'm not looking much more than that, but yeah, that's where we are right now.
No, but James, there's a little bit of a difference. It's Spencer Rattler, and the Saints are thinking a little bit, well, if Derek Carr doesn't work out this season, it's possible Spencer Rattler could have enough upside to maybe take over as a starter. They're not counting on it, but They're keeping their eye on him, okay? They haven't eliminated that possibility.
I agree with that.
So you're the GM of the Saints, and Tyler Heinicke is available, and at a reasonable price, I might add. Are you interested in signing him?
You're saying if I don't have those guys?
No. With your current situation, I had to do that with Jack because of
Tyrod.
Tyrod.
I'll say this. You need 3 quarterbacks, Mac. Tyler Heinicke would back up Tyrod Taylor right now, if I got
Good point. Good point.
But he's not that far from Tyrod Taylor in capabilities. So you do need a 3rd quarterback. So I definitely would think it's a bargain if I could get him at a low price. Tyler Heinicke, absolutely.
But what do you want to come there as a 3rd stringer? That would be the only problem. Go ahead, James.
I've seen Taylor Heinicke in firsthand, Washington, and of course with the the Falcons, and I'm just not impressed with the guys in comparison to the guys that I have in the room, the quarterback room right now. So no, I wouldn't take a chance on him at all. And it's not being biased because he played for the Falcons. I mean, I just saw how he played, and I'm just not really a fan of his game. And so I can see him being the third where he's at in Pittsburgh. And of course, I agree with Jack in regards to his take of him being the third there. We have two guys now, so yeah, I wouldn't even take him. I'd be happy with what I have right now.
So me as a Giants GM, I take him in a minute. I do not trust Drew Lock as the backup. I do not know if Daniel Jones would be is going to last the whole year. In fact, I'm still questioning whether he's going to start this year because of that injury. They say he's working out and looks good and all this good stuff, but they say that all the time. I would definitely go after Heinicke because I know he does have starting. He has started in the past. And listen, I mean, I think it would be a great move by the Giants to get him. I don't know if they're going to or not, but if I was a GM, I would definitely go after him.
Well, Mac, definitely I would take Tyler Heinicke over Tommy Cutlets. I mean, come on.
Yes, definitely.
No, easily. I'd put Tommy Cutlets on the practice squad, and Tyler Heinicke, I'd let him compete with Drew Lock for the backup, position.
Yes. So different thoughts and different situations, and that's why we're doing this exercise here. This is a guy that might not be with his team this year, depending on what happens in his contracts. And we're going to talk about Jets. Jason Reddick. He's not wanting to play without an extension. The Jets. Yes, sorry, I said J. Yes, right. I said JJ. But
the Lakers should get rid of JJ Reddick.
but anyway,
that's a big blowhard.
Yes. So anyway, and the Jets may try to sweeten the pot a little bit this year for him, but from what I'm reading, everything I've read, the Jets are not going to offer him an extension. They're going to have him play his contract. That's why they trade him for that 1 year. So if Reddick forces his way out as a Saint, James, the GM, are you going to make a go at him?
Only if he plays the contract that he agreed to going to the Jets. If he's going to be a problematic player.
You already know from what he did with the Jets, that's not happening unless you're going to sign him to an extension.
Try to give him a new contract.
I cannot because I just can't trust the fact. Again, having a sane, non-problematic locker room is priceless. I don't want this problem coming into my locker room, changing things up and having guys thinking different things. He needs to be on the field playing, and then you already showed what you are. I mean, we brought you in we on a trade, and so we gave up capital for you. Yes, prove to me what you're going to do on this current contract you have, and then we'll go into negotiations on the contract. I wouldn't take him.
I want you guys to consider this. We don't know what's going on inside Haason Reddick's head, and we're not certain of his true motivations. You take a defensive end like that who's a future Hall of Fame in all probability, and he's been to a lot of training camps in his life. He's probably thinking, I know what it takes to get ready for the regular season. I don't have to be in camp. I know what it takes. Sometimes a guy is willing to take the fine, call it a holdout so he can miss camp, knowing the team will come around, and all he wants him to do is make up the money he's lost in fines, and chances are the team will do it to eventually get him back. And this way he can delay coming to camp. That might be his motivation. You can't rule that out.
Well, as Pag said, the Eagles got rid of him for a reason. And I think this was part of the reason, Jack. I think, as a team, now listen, talent-wise, if I didn't just sign Brian Burns, I'd take a shot at him. Right?
You have to give him a new contract. Otherwise,
I would. This is what I'm saying.
I would go to another team without a new contract.
This is what I'm saying. I would take a shot at him. I would make him a contract extension offer if I didn't have Brian Burns. But we would just filled that. So I mean that's. Go ahead, Jack.
If I'm the Jets, you talk about owners being tough, Mac. Owners have to be tough, but we've talked about that in the past. if I'm the Jets, I could say, okay, you have the contract, you have this, you have that. We might tweak it a little bit. We're willing to have an open mind to tweak your contract. If you want to hold out, you want to play hardball like that, stay at home for the season. You sit out a year, your value's just going to go down for next year. You'll lose money missing these games. I would just, maybe call his bluff.
Exactly.
You definitely could do that. But again, I mean, you picked him up because you thought he would help your pass rush. That was the whole intentions. I mean, this reminds me of Jamal Adams, as if Jamal Adams was actually playing on the Jets at the time. Do you think about trying to trade him, Jack, as the GM? We'll take it a step further.
What are they going to get for him? What's a team going to give him? At most, let's say they get a third-round draft choice. I don't even think they get that now. I mean, look at Brian Burns, a second and a fifth, and he was a live body, and it was done during a calm negotiation. I would leave it alone.
I'm trying to think of a team that I mean, they need a pass rusher.
Well, this is what I would do, guys. From what I understand, Reddick's contract's not guaranteed. And that I would guarantee his contract. Say, look, if you show up to camp and you're staying there and you're going to play hard, you're going to get your money. We'll guarantee the season's salary. Because I don't blame Hassan Reddick. His contract isn't guaranteed. Something is bothering him. But the Jets reportedly might have a willingness to do that and guarantee his contract.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. So again, that all depends on on whether the Jets decide that, and he says, "I'm just not playing." So I mean, they still have another step that has to happen before him become available. Okay, so we have T. Higgins, who did not sign any kind of extension. He's going to play out this last year. The Bengals say, "Hey, listen, he's available, guys." So you, as the Jets, Jack, I mean, he has a two-year, 1,000-yard receiving under his belt on his resume. He has that problem with injuries, but he is when he's healthy, he's a very good number 2, 1A wide receiver, whatever you want to say, on the team with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers and now Wilson, and now you've got a big man threat who can go deep. Do the Jets actually take a shot and see what he wants and maybe offer him extension after the signing?
Well, he has 1 year. They franchise tagged him for. He's getting like $21.8 million or so. I mean, if I'm the Jets, no, I'm not signing him to an extension, making him, a focus on my receiving cause. Would I? And what would I have to give up for him to get him for this 1 year and then see what's going on? The Jets addressed their receiving position. They got Williams there, coming off an injury, short-handed. They drafted, what's his name, Madelai Corley in the 3rd round. Did I get that? And somehow I got tongue-tied on the name. But they addressed their receiving cause, for this year, backing up, obviously, Wilson this year. And if the price is right, if I could give up like a 5th-round draft choice to have him for 1 year, and then I'll reevaluate Higgins at the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, I would do it if I could fit it in under the cap.
Well, see, I would imagine that Higgins is not going to take – if he's going somewhere, he wants an extension. He's not just going to go there for 1 year.
I wouldn't give him the extension, no.
Okay, so Derek Carr and the wide receiver situation with the Saints isn't the greatest. I mean, you got rid of a couple. You got a good young one there at the Saints. Would you take a chance as the GM? And I mean, maybe you got to do some numbers pushing to make it work, and willing to maybe give up a draft choice or a player or so to get T. Higgins. Would you, as a GM, take a shot?
Given the history of the New Orleans Saints, they've always had overachieving wide receivers. They never had anybody that was top tier. And they had a quarterback to do it. Now we have Derek Carr now, so that's a different story. But I like Chris Olave as a number 1. Rashid Shaheed just got another contract, 1 year extra, $5.2 million. He's an All-Pro as a returner, but he's in his own right, 700 yards. He had more yards than T. Higgins, and more TDs than T. Higgins. T. Higgins had like 600 yards or something like that, and he's yeah. But I've looked at his career; it's not been to be asked for what he's asking for. It's not that great. I'm not a huge fan of T. Higgins. I like his game, but his contentiousness and the malcontent stuff that with the money that he's trying to get, he's not worth it. I'm not going to bring him in. I like our guy in our second year, got A.T. Perry. He's about T. Higgins size. He's got the same speed. He was taken in the 5th round, and I think he's an underrated guy. He played well at Wake Forest, and he gave us some flashes and scored like 4 TDs, including 2 in that last game against the Falcons. And I like his upside. So no, I'm going to pass on T. Higgins.
T. Higgins isn't a star. Let's make that clear. If he went to the Jets, let's say they picked him up, he wouldn't be their primary receiver. It would be Garrett Wilson would be the number 1 option, T. Higgins the number 2 option.
I agree with that.
It's not like you're getting Justin Jefferson. It's not like you're getting A.J. Brown. It's not even like you're getting Devontae Smith, who I think is better. I mean,
Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you this, Jack. I think the Saints, this is their year. They have a lot of veterans over there. James is happy with their rookie class or their young players, which is great. But if they don't do it this year, I think the Saints are going to be in for a massive rebuild. And that GM and James is getting fired, to tell you the truth, because he's a GM over there right now. So James is fired next year. For any team out there that's looking for a GM, me as a Giants GM, guess what? I'm talking to him. I want to see what kind of deal I can work out. I want to see. I mean, right now our best receiver supposedly is somebody that's never played football right now. So I have a lot of questions at wide receiver. And if I can get a deal done with him, even if it means backloading the contract, even if whatever I got to do, I might take a shot at T. Higgins. He's a big receiver. He's a possession receiver. Again, 2 years in a row, he had over 1,000 yards receiving. We haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver, I think, in the Giants since Homer Jones, for God's sakes. It's been.
Let me tell you, Mac, who takes a shot.
I would. Go ahead.
Let me tell you the type of team that takes a shot at T. Higgins and gives him the big extension, the big money. You take a GM and coach that it's their moment of truth. If the team doesn't do well this year, they can be gone, and they need to get over the top and make a serious run at the Super Bowl. You give T. Higgins the big money because for your own job survival, it helps the team do better in the short run, and they hold on to their job security a bit longer. I mean, that's the type of team that would take a T. Higgins, but to look at him as a long-range thing to give an investment like that, big money investment, come on. Like I said, he's no Justin Jefferson, even close.
Well, no, he's not. But I think he's a great number 2 receiver, and I think on teams that
number
don't have
2 receiver. But you don't pay him like a number 1 receiver. He wants to get paid like a
number 1 money.
Well, again, that's called negotiation. That everybody wants something, man. They're going to start high. They're not going to say, okay, I'll take $22 million a year. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, I want this. So that's the part of negotiations of you being the GM and seeing what you can work out. Again, I don't think T. Higgins is going to, maybe a Buffalo Bill or something. I don't think they have enough money. I don't know if they do or not to put him under the cap. I know the Patriots are interested in him. I know there's a couple of teams that are interested in him. I'm saying just as willing to talk, willing to negotiate, I would. I have nothing to lose.
I could see that with Drake May. If it's a long-range plan, you're thinking, okay, Drake May is going to play next year. We want him to grow with a receiver, practice with T. Higgins. We could have T. Higgins invest 3, maybe 4 years in him, so he'll play along Drake May. So we know Drake May is going to have a solid receiver with him moving forward. I can kind of see the logic behind that.
And the Steelers were also another team named that, they're looking for that second receiver. So that's another team that they say is kind of looking at him. So let's go to a Giants receiver. Darius Slayton with the Giants has probably been, with all the different quarterbacks they've had and Daniel Jones, the most consistent receiver for the Giants. He averages about 800 yards a year for the Giants and makes some big plays. He's a decent receiver. So as a Jet, you're looking maybe for a third receiver. Right now, the Giants have renegotiated or re-gave him some money, but they have not signed him to a 2-year contract or 3-year contract, Jack. This is really his last year. As a Jet GM, is that somebody you would take a shot at?
No, maybe for 1 year if I can get him for a few million or whatever. That would be about it. Darius Slayton wouldn't be a big piece to the Jets' offensive puzzle at all. I mean, he would be sharing a lot of touches, with the other receivers. Obviously, he wouldn't be anywhere near Garrett Wilson. I think they got Mike Williams, Corley. This set at tight end. It's like I just don't see it. I mean, I think he'd have the potential to be another, McCole Hardman, who, didn't get many touches with the Jets, and then he went back to the Chiefs. I wouldn't with Slayton, unless it was like $4 million a year, something like that, and you could just, fit him in as a situational player. No.
James, with the Saints, is that an experienced receiver, maybe somebody that you would want on your team? And you're not going to spend a lot of money on this guy. He probably wants a 2-3 year contract, and he for the Giants, for not passing, he's played well for him. What do you think?
I like him as a slot guy. Yes, for sure. This is where I think the Saints are lacking right now, and as having a slot player. And I like his hands. I think he's, like you said, consistent, very steady. This is a guy, and a little bit older than the guys that are in my room, so he'd be the veteran to lead these guys and kind of keep them in line. But yeah, I would definitely give him a 2 to 3 year contract, but as a slot for sure. And I think he'd give you, like you said, consistently that 700-800 yard, maybe 4-5 touchdowns. I'd definitely take that.
So, Pags, welcome in the Philly Sports Guy. How you doing, Pags, today?
Good morning. I'm a little crispy. I'm out here in Pittsburgh, and last night I had some fun.
All right, cool. Well, that's good. Drinking away your sorrows after Pittsburgh beats you for the second time, I guess. But anyway, Pags, we'll get into that later. Pags, we're playing You're the GM. And I'll go over real quick what we decided on so far with the named free agents out there. The first one was Tyler Heinicke, third stringer for Pittsburgh now. Jack said he would take him as a third stringer. James wouldn't want him at all. I would take him over what I got right now as my second stringer right now. How about the Eagles? I mean, you got Pickens there right now. Would Tyler Heinicke interest you if you were the GM for some kind of competition with Pickens?
Meh, not really. I mean, we know what we're getting with Tyler Heinicke, and it's what's he, like 86 years old now? I mean, he came out of college as like somebody who was like 40 already. Yes, so it's I don't know that he's going to pose any real competition. And I think that's real. So maybe to have as the emergency backup if we needed one, but I don't think that we even, that may be the only reason to have him.
So you don't think that Tyler Heinicke is better than Kenny Pickett?
No, I don't.
All right. Okay. You're the GM. That's your decision. I would definitely take it. We also talked about
well, that's because you're the Giants and you don't really have a quarterback.
I would take almost anybody right now. We also talked about Hassan Riddick. He may try to force his way out if he doesn't get what he wants. I know the Eagles wouldn't be interested in getting him. You got a good wide receiving crew over there right now. I would imagine T. Higgins wouldn't interest you if you were Howie Roseman over there, especially for maybe a 3 year. You would have to sign him for an extension. Would that be something that you might be willing to take a look at?
Yeah, I would take a look at it. I mean, obviously, bringing in T. Higgins would elevate, like he would definitely fall into the number 3 spot, for wide receiver. So I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to do that. Of course, it would be a money thing.
Right.
So,
It's not realistic, guys. T. Higgins isn't going to. They're not going to pay him big money. The Eagles on any circumstance.
I didn't.
Not going to go there for
Listen,
low
are you
money.
the GM of the Eagles or am I?
I mean,
So listen, I would have to consider it.
yeah.
I would have to consider it.
That's
So
why
yes,
the
I don't know.
Eagles,
I don't know
2
that it would
years
be
from
worth
now,
it
they'll be all
financially.
tapped
But
out.
this is the reason why you're the GM of the Jets, and the Jets suck so bad. So it's
Jets will have a better year than the Eagles this year. But
Listen, Jack has a point, and so does Pags. As I said, as a Giants GM, I know what he's asking for. That doesn't mean he's going to get that. There is negotiations that you go through it, and I don't know if you're what the Bengals are looking for in return. You'd have to negotiate that too. I'm saying, is there an interest in T. Higgins where you think you might be able to make a negotiation, and even if you backload a contract where you might be able to get him on? Is it worth discussions? And that's what I'm asking. I'm not saying that you're going to get him.
Howie Roseman is the king of the show me contract. Let's play 1 year, get yourself a ring, and then you can go get paid afterwards.
So anyway,
I would love to do that
part of
the
the
contract.
Well, he's doing that with Cincy. He signed a franchise tag, T. Higgins. He's reported he's ready to roll with the Bengals this year, and he's going to have a chance to show everyone in free agency next year, unless they franchise him again.
Well, if I'm the Bengals GM, Jack, I want to get something for him before I roll with him for a year. I would maybe want to get some draft picks or a player or two and get him off my book so I can make another move. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider with just letting him roll.
What are you coming? Since you mentioned what Pags with the Eagles, Mac, if you're the Eagles, what do you give as far as draft capital for T. Higgins? They're not going to give it.
Good question. Good question.
I don't see them give it. Well, I could see something like that. They've made moves like that. Yeah, I could see that conceivably.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's what you would give it. And because truth of the matter is that you're not going to franchise him again, because right now the highest number, he would have to be the highest played wide receiver on a second franchise tag, and that's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $40 million a year.
And Pags, you have two receivers who are better than T. Higgins on the Eagles right now. He's not going to come there and be a star player. Why would T. Higgins want to go to the Eagles?
To get a ring.
He could get one at Cincinnati, has a competent team. You can't rule out their chances.
But you can't really count on their chances right now either. So
I can make the argument he has a better quarterback throwing to him in Joe Burrow than Jalen Hurts. That is a valid argument.
There is a valid argument to that, but he also doesn't have the defense. He doesn't have the offensive line. He doesn't have. They're not the Eagles. They're the Cincinnati Bengals, and there's a reason why the Cincinnati Bengals have only been to one Super Bowl in the last 40 years.
All right. So the next player we're going to talk about is James Bradberry, of course, an Eagle who they're trying to work out at safety. Had a terrible year last year after losing his defensive coordinator. The year before that, he had a really good year. So if the Eagles are willing to talk to you, and of course, Pags as the Eagle GM would be talking to you, so good luck with that. Jack, as the Jet GM, is Bradberry somebody his experience and maybe he can play safety, maybe he has another good year at cornerback? Is that somebody that you're interested in maybe making a move for with the Jets?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, if the price is right. I mean, the price can't be anywhere close to being overwhelming, but he would be a rotational player. Yeah, he's been around a while. You never know with James Bradberry which version shows up. When he's good, he's very, very good. And when he's bad, he's very, very bad. But sure, I mean, I would take a chance on him if you can sign him basically for backup money. I mean, he would be a nice addition.
Well, first, he's still on the roster right now, so it would need to be like for a 4th-round pick. You'd be trading him for a 4th-round pick, I would think.
I don't think I would give a 4th rounder back. I don't think I would do it. A 6th rounder, yeah, something like that. A 4th rounder still.
So you're saying a 4th, and you're coming back with a 6th. Would we go with a 5th?
I would have to do some serious thinking about it. I can't just make
All
a
right,
snap
good job.
decision.
We're actually making deals on the show. This has never been done before, folks.
But let me
Anyway,
tell you what happens a lot of the time, Matt.
Wait a
Matt,
minute. Wait a minute. As Pax said, he's still on the roster. So is Hassan Riddick. Things would have to happen. They don't owe him a lot of money on his contract this last year, but they would be able to release some of the dead cap money, that salary that is on, which is a substantial amount. So the Eagles might be interested in this if you're willing to negotiate with them what to get. The only question is, after you negotiate with the Eagles, what would Bradbury want as a contract, right? I mean, does he want a contract extension, or is it just for the 1 year? That's something, of course, would have to be negotiated with Bradbury.
well, I just want to say, smart GMs like Howie Roseman deal this way. They wait to see what team suffers an injury at a certain position when they're looking to move a guy, and they're very patient, and that team sees the season coming up. They've got to get a replacement player, and then he's kind of dealing from strength.
It's true. He's a great GM. There's no doubt about it. James, you said maybe a fifth. You might do it. Pags might have talked you into it. So suppose he says to Jack, fifth and another next year, another sixth. Are you willing to do that?
No, not a fifth.
James, are you willing to do that to get Bradbury? No. Okay. All right. I just want to see what happens.
It also depends on your system. Bradbury is a man-to-man guy who covers. He's not like a cover two guy. So if you play cover two primarily, he's not going to be your guy. You need him to get up on the line and be able to go man-to-man on guys. That was the problem last year. He fails. I mean, and you knew this with the Giants. He was failing in the system, and when the system went to a cover two, it wasn't his thing. And when he first got here, he was doing a lot more man-to-man. And this is that. So 100%. If you have a man-to-man system, it might be something worthwhile. So you might give me a fifth round pick next year and a seventh round in 2 years.
Well, like Pat is saying, let's say hypothetically Sauce Gardner gets injured, he's out for the year. All of a sudden, if I'm the Jets, I might give a fourth round selection for James Bradbury as the season is coming up. So situations change.
And Pat, a heck of a point, because Bradbury, a bigger cornerback, has to get on the line. You've seen him get beat in the zone a few times at the end of the year. He's not as fast as a young wide receiver. He's a mauler at the line of scrimmage. And yes, you would have to change maybe how you do defense, or if you do play the man-to-man. A great point. So next up is a New England Patriot, believe it or not, Matthew Judon. From what the Boston Herald is saying, the writer, he is not going to play under this contract. He was hurt last year before. Huge year, guys. He had the bicep tear last year. 15.1 sacks and 42 quarterback pressures. I mean, he had a monster year 2 years ago. Jack, I mean, you still got Hassan Reddick there. If by chance you lose him and he forces his way out, do you say, all right, to heck with it, I'm going to go get Judon from the Patriots?
No, I have a hard time trusting players, no matter how good they are, if they're not seeing the field, if they're hurt, and if they've last done it 2-3 years ago. I somehow take a pass. I think the Jet defensive unit is good enough. They could be fine without Riddick. I mean, I realize, what they lost with, Bryce Huff, going to the Eagles, but he was kind of part of the Jets system, less of an individual player than Hassan Riddick. I live without, that particular player. I don't get desperate.
James, you as the GM of the Saints, you want that pass rusher?
Absolutely. I kicked the tires on him because Cam Jordan's a little long in the tooth. Tonal passing, we were almost dead last in sacks last year. We can use some of that energy. We got Chase Young. It's yet to be determined how he's going to be on the team. Hopefully, he'll make us a lot better. But definitely, man, a pass rush guy that can give you double-digit sacks is a premium. I would definitely kick the tires on him and see how he's doing, and maybe even give him fourth rounder for him, or third, if I can. Yeah.
Okay, Pags, I know you guys got a good defensive line over there. Would that be somebody? I mean, you're going to have to give up something for this guy to the Patriots, and you're probably going to have to sign him too, maybe to more than a 1-year contract. He's 30 years old. I mean, you did lose a couple big experienced defensive linemen there. Are you willing to give Judon, some money and to draft make the trade with the Patriots?
Possibly. I mean, obviously, we do a rotating system on our defensive line, so he would have to fall into the scheme and with the money as well. So my thought is that you're going to be able to give him somewhere in the neighborhood of about $10 million a year. If he's willing to accept that, I would trade Bradbury.
Well, there's another element involved. There's another element that we don't talk about. If I'm the GM, I consult, for example, with a Vic Fangio, okay, the new defensive coordinator of the Eagles, and I'll say, well, what do you think of this guy? And if Fangio wants him in the worst way, that has some influence on me, some serious influence, because he's been around, he's coached against these players, he sees what a nuisance they could potentially be. So if I have a new coordinator who comes in and he has his system, I got to buy all in if I'm a GM into that coordinator.
Okay, all right. I just got Brian Burns, so I probably would not give Judon what he would want. I'd love to have another pass rusher. I don't think any team wouldn't like to have one, but I think James makes the best case as a team looking for a pass rusher that might even sign him to an extension. That would be something that maybe the Saints GM would definitely look at.
Well, that's the reason why the Giants are going to be in last place or close to last place in the NFL, because they only need one pass rusher, and that's it.
Just as long as we beat you at the end of the year again, Pags, I'm happy.
Yak is still gloating over the Giants beating the Eagles the last game of the regular season.
Yeah. Because it's the only win that he could hold on to for the last 18 years.
I am going to say this about the Giants.
Oh my God! Do not go history with Giants against the Eagles, please.
5-26. 5-26 over the last 31 games. 5-26.
31 games. I thought you said years. So we don't want to talk history.
5-26 in the last 31 games. That's 15 years.
Yes,
Just so that
and also, what are we? 5 Super Bowl appearances and winning 4. And the Eagles have how?
Yeah, but not in the last 15 years. Not in the last 15 years. And it doesn't matter. You guys are the redheaded stepchild that's like our stepbrother that we beat up all the time.
Well, the redheaded stepchild sure beat down the big brother last game they played. So anyway, let's continue with the GM. I got to use it, Pax. It's the only thing I got. Let's go to Brandon Ayuk, probably the hottest guy in the market. This is something a lot of teams are looking at this guy. San Francisco says they want to keep him. I don't think it's happening. Ayuk refused any negotiation when the contracts broke down. He's on there for a year. 49ers would have to make a move, and they could probably get some draft choices and maybe a player or so for this. He's a very talented wide receiver, young, had 1,352 yards receiving last year. Jack, this could be a number 1 receiver for you on the Jets. I mean, he would battle Wilson for this. You as a Jet, do you make the big offer for him?
No. You know what? There's a small red flag. He's really good, Ayuk. Really, really good. Don't misunderstand me. But when you're in an offense with, McCaffrey, Samuel, Kittle, it makes it a little easier for you, to get your touches and to get open. They're not keying on your defenses. To me, I put him in the category of, let's say, a CD Lamb type. Excellent receiver, very, very good. But I'm not paying him franchise type money, top of the line money, making him one of the 3 top receivers in the NFL. I don't look at him that way. I look at him just as a very, very good receiver, who's benefited by his system. So no, I couldn't afford him. I couldn't afford what he wants.
Well, we're going on the assumption that whatever you got to do, backload the contract, whatever you got to do to sign him, and the guaranteed money
I
down the
wouldn't do
road.
whatever I could do. I
Okay.
wouldn't break the bank for him. No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
How about you?
I would for Justin Jefferson type, but not for him.
Okay, James. How about for New Orleans Saints? Of course, like I said, you got some good wide receivers. Would you even offer up maybe a young wide receiver to the San Francisco 49ers? What would you do to get Ayuk if you could?
Okay, before I answer that, I want to go back to what Jack said, comparing him to CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb is a much better wide receiver than him.
He's
I mean,
better. He's better.
yeah, I mean, given
They're comparable.
yeah, but like you said, all the other talent that he had there in Dallas didn't really have a lot of talent at wide receiver, and CeeDee still accomplished a great deal.
Who
Yes.
else were they going to throw to?
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
Who
I'm
else
saying.
are they throwing to?
He caught it.
So I'm saying, of course, CeeDee Lamb's going to get a lot of touches and get a lot of yards. There's nobody else. I
Well,
mean,
we say,
I could say the opposite of Jack's
but-
argument
but-
is
coverage.
the opposite of Jack's argument is, James, that they had a lot of different weapons and he still got his touches and he still got his yards. That's the opposite of Jack's argument, right? So I know
Well,
yards, but go ahead, James. Sorry.
I would say I would at least see what the deal would be. At least see, But I know he wants a lot of money. He wants the range of $30 million a year, and I don't see him as a $30 million a year player. I think he's good. I think he's very good. But he had one season to really prove that, and he's been in the league a little while. And like you say, he's a young player, but I just wouldn't want to spend that amount of money. I would see what he wants, and if we can negotiate, then I try to see if I can get him. If I can, I'm not going to pay $30 million for him.
I think more of a fact than Mac, the question should be tweaked a little bit. The question's asking, would you trade certain players for him? If I'm Dallas, I wouldn't trade CeeDee Lamb for Ayuk. If I'm the Eagles, I wouldn't trade, obviously, Brown. I wouldn't trade Devontae Smith for Ayuk. That would be a fair question. I wouldn't trade Devontae Smith. So there's your answer right there with the value. I wouldn't trade Garrett Wilson with the Jets for Ayuk.
The point being, it may not be a player; it may be a draft pick, Jack. So I mean, you just can't. I mean, there's more options here. I imagine going to Pags as a GM of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's pretty much set at wide receiver. He might want a third wide receiver, maybe like we were talking about Darius Slayton earlier, maybe a third wide receiver that's consistent. But he's not. I don't think I'm going to ask Pags here in a minute. If he's willing to pay or make the concessions that the 49ers would want to get a Brandon Ayuk.
We're not good trade partners.
Right.
Obviously, for the same reason that they don't want him going to our team.
Right.
It's just not. We're not good trade partners. I think the 49ers are about to do something with him and put him in like football hell and send him to Carolina. Like, I feel like that's because Carolina actually has a need for a wide receiver. They have, next year, they still don't have a first round pick, but you could maybe trade a third or a fourth round pick because that's all he'll really warrant right now. So you're getting almost like what you would assume is like a second round pick by getting a third round. Like, obviously you're going to get an early third round pick because Carolina is going to be back at the bottom again this year. And, you send them to, you want to start you want to make waves, go to football hell.
But Pax, consider this. Certain teams, their window is maybe starting to close. The Niners' window to win a Super Bowl is still open, but you get the feeling after this year it's not going to be as open. So maybe you stick with the player this year, let him be unhappy. He'll go somewhere else next year, but you're going all out to win the Super Bowl this year because if you wait one more year on this, chances of him being as good next year as this year.
I'll tell you why I don't. I'll tell you why I don't do that. Because Pittsburgh Steelers need a wide receiver. They need a second wide receiver. The New England Patriots want a number one wide receiver.
Yeah.
There are teams out there that want a number one, number two wide receiver that are dying to get a wide receiver. I know Steelers have been talked about. They've been talking with San Francisco. I know the Patriots to get somebody with Drake May, again, as we talked about with another wide receiver. They would love to get their hands on Ayuk. And it might be at a big price. I think there are teams out there that would give you a lot if you're the San Francisco 49er GM to get Ayuk. And
the 49ers would probably be better to send him to the AFC team to see him, so they won't see him.
Exactly. And that's another.
Or sending them to Carolina, where it's like just like I said, it's football help.
Where's Sonya to hear all this?
Well, and the team is going to look, guys. The team is going to look at it this way: do we have the quarterback to utilize this receiver? Like the LA Chargers, for example, could come into play. They got Justin Herbert. They have an elite quarterback. You don't want him going. You don't want to make a deal for play if you don't have the type of quarterback who could bring out the best in that receiver.
Yeah, but again, I think it all depends on what they want to do. Jack might be right. Maybe they think this is their best chance at going to the Super Bowl and hold on to him. Yeah. I don't know if I want a player like that that's unhappy on my team, because that might affect me the other way too. So that's my thoughts on something like that. So let's take an early look at the NFC West, guys. We talked about the NFC East last week, and I think there's going to be an interesting development, especially where I think the bottom teams will be. And Jack, I'm going to get your thoughts on these early thoughts. These are not really predictions, but after the draft, after free agency for the most part is over, we still got some to do, but major moves have been made. What are your thoughts on the NFC West and where teams are going to finish?
Well, obviously the Chiefs are the class of the division. Patrick Mahomes was saying the other day, last season wasn't
NFC. NFC.
Oh, NFC? Are we talking? Oh, I thought you were talking about AFC. I'm sorry. Wow, that is I'll tell you, it's a tough division. I just mentioned with the Niners a little while ago, a lot of people are thinking the Rams could unseat them and win that division this year, even though you would think the Niners' worst case scenario would go in as a wild card team. I just don't know what to make out of the Rams. Seattle, did they take a step back? Well, this is their first year without Pete Carroll. So you wonder what's going on there. And, of course, the Arizona Cardinals, are they going to be a team on the upswing? They were competitive in their losses last year. They didn't have a good record. What were they, like 4-13? But they were competitive. It wasn't an automatic, easy win teams playing them. And, to get Marvin Harrison and to have a healthy Kyler Murray this year, Arizona, even though they're not looked at as a playoff team, they probably won't get there. They could go from 4-13 to like 8-9, not being a doormat team, this particular season. And I don't know yet. I'd have to really sit down and do some serious thinking who I'm going to pick to win the division between the Niners and the Rams. Off the top of my head, I'd say, the 49ers. They could maybe pick up from where they left off last year. But it's a good division. Seattle's the most intriguing team because we don't know what to make out of them. They could either be a playoff team or they could be like a 7-10 type team.
So, Pags, let me let you go second on this one. Well, what is your order and kind of why?
So I'm going to still stick with the 49ers as the number one. With or without Ayuk, I still think that they have the most talent. The reason why I don't think the Rams are going to overtake them is Aaron Donald retired, and that's enough. That is just enough to make sure that they will not take over for the 49ers. I think that Seattle is still number 3, and the Cardinals are number 4. And could they flip-flop? Yes. Yes, the Cardinals have gotten enough better, and I think that Seattle is in now their change. Like they are going to retool or redo whatever they're going to do with the new coach and the way that the GM is going. I think that this is going to be a transition year for them, and it could possibly be not a very good year because of all the different changes that they've made. So it's possible that Arizona could wind up as high as number 3. But I think it's not going to matter when you're talking about 6 and 7 wins. I think that's going to be at the bottom. I think that the Rams are going to be somewhere in that 8 to 9 win category. And then the 49ers are going to be in the 11 to 13 win category, depending on how their season goes.
James, why don't you give us a crack too? Are you agreeing with Bags and Jack for the most part?
Pretty much. I mean, 49ers number one. I just don't see any of those teams, even with some of the moves they've made, to even compare to the 49ers. They're just still loaded. They hadn't had any significant changes like the Rams. Like you said, Aaron Donald, that's a huge loss. And he retired on top, but I mean, that's the anchor of your defense. And so they drafted the kid out of Florida State, but we don't know what he's going to be like. I mean, he does a defensive end. And I think maybe 8 to 9 wins for the Rams. I like 13 wins for the 49ers still. I mean, I still got them up there to enough to just, I think they win the whole division undefeated, because I don't like Seattle. I just don't like where they are. I think they're okay. I mean, okay enough to just be maybe just under 500. And the jury's out on Kyler Murray. Even with Marvin Harrison there, man, I'm just not really sold on him. And I will see how this season goes, but I'm not a fan of the team overall. The organization seemed like they just really hadn't really put much effort into really building around him. But again, for his style of play, but I see 4 wins for them at the bottom.
You know, I
Depends
don't
on whether if he reads the playbook or not.
Right.
that's he has to mature for
I'm
sure.
going to say this, guys. Sometimes you got to look 1 year ahead to evaluate how a team will do this year and look at the quarterback position. Brock Purdy is going to be the 9 quarterback a year from now. Okay, Matthew Stafford, if he doesn't retire and stays healthy, is going to be the Ram quarterback a year from now. Kyler Murray too is going to be the Cardinal quarterback if he doesn't retire a year from now. Geno Smith, I get the feeling he's not going to be the starting quarterback in 2025, and that should be revealing what we should expect from Seattle this year.
You know, I don't think I think that has nothing to do with this year at all. Listen, I agree with Jack that the Rams are going to be a lot more better than you two are saying. I think the Rams are going to be up right on the 49ers' heels this year. I love the way their offense kicked it in last year. Their defense loses Donald, true, but look at what they got on offense. They got a surprisingly really good running game. Shocked everybody. They got 2 of the best wide receivers in the league right now. That tandem is nothing to sneeze at. And Stafford is a seasoned quarterback who won a Super Bowl already.
Yeah, but
once they did against the Detroit Lions, they almost ended up in a championship last year. I'm not saying the Rams aren't that good of minus 500 team. I think they're right on there. I think they're right on the heels, and I think the 49ers do edge it out. I think I just like the 49ers overall team. But I think the Rams
biggest
are right
difference
there.
being Donald. The biggest difference being Donald. I mean, obviously you had one of the best defensive linemen in the game. When you have one of the best, there's everybody else below them. And that's the biggest difference.
That is a big difference, but they also have one of the best young wide receivers in the league too. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
It's a difference between 7 and 10 points a game now. That's what we're talking about.
I'll tell you right now, I think that rookie they picked up from Florida State is going to be a star this year. I really do. And I think he's going to have an unbelievable season. I think the Rams are right on their heels. I don't think the 49ers are impenetrable. They got problems over there. Brock Purdy and Kittle had a down year. McCaffrey's one of the best. They got questions right now with Deebo Samuels. They don't know if they're going to sign him or not. They got some questions over there. And the 49er defense wasn't great last year either. They weren't what they were the year before. They got some questions over there on that side of the ball. The biggest thing I think is going to happen, if Kyler Murray studies his book, and that wide receiver they pick up, they may sneak out and beat Seattle for 3rd place. And Seattle does have a great wide receiver core. The running game has a little question marks. Their defense, a lot of question marks. We'll see what the new head coach does. I think that may be the biggest surprise. Seattle dropping and falling off a little bit. I'm not sure if that's going to happen because, as Pag says, I don't know. Even a healthy Kyler Murray has problems. I don't know if that head coach, maybe the head coach gets his head. They do have a good young head coach.
Former Eagle coordinator.
So maybe he gets into his head a little bit. I don't know. It'd be nice to see Kyler Murray with a good year. I don't believe they haven't adjusted the offense around him. I think they did maybe too much because they depended way too much on him. I think with this Eagle, the former Eagle head coach, the new head coach, I think they're starting something over there in Arizona. I don't know if they're gonna, how much they improve, but I think they might improve enough to take third place. So interesting. I think it's a very interesting division. I really do, especially the two top teams there, especially with me and Jack and you two being so opposite in our expectations. I think it's going to be a heck of a year over there. That's going to be very interesting. So let's get some of the other news stories in here. We're near the end of the show. I'll save the most dominating teams in NFL history, the top 50 next week. We're going to go do the top 5. We can always do that. So team and WNBA beats the female team USA. A lot to do with 3 players that one who ended up not withdrawing her name from the pool. Hopefully I'm saying this right. Brenna. Oh my God, not Brenna Stewart. I'm trying to get her name here. Help me out, James. I know you're into this. Olga, thank you. Say it.
Something. Yeah.
Yes.
It's hard. It's Nigerian. I just can't get it.
Well, anyway, I'm glad
that's the best thing you've said all day, Jack. We couldn't hear a word.
I hope he stays there.
No, Mac is doing a brilliant job of hosting this show. All he has to do is take a knee towards the end of the show and get conservative, but Mac is putting the ball in the air, fumbling these names, and come on, you're doing a brilliant job hosting Mac till now. Forget a name. Who cares, WNBA?
Thank you. It matters. People do care about whether or not the WNBA or not.
But no, I do. But the name you're going to throw out, who cares? I mean, come on.
I know. She
I'm sure Brenna does.
There you go. She was in the pool to go to the Team USA. She withdrew because of the politics, and of course, we got Caitlin Clark who does her thing. We've got Sunshine there. Help me out, thank you, Angel Reese. She ends up doing 10 and 12 rebounds for the game, and Team WNBA upsets Team USA. I think it's 117 to 109, somewhere about that. Do you guys take anything away from that? I mean, is this going to be talked about on a bunch of podcasts that the mistakes Team USA made? Is this going to be a chatter there, or is it just an exhibition game that helps Team USA get ready for the Olympics?
Well, notice no one's talking about what Team USA did wrong. They're talking about what the WNBA is doing. With the Olympics coming up, there's more interest in the WNBA players not on the team than those who are on. The exact opposite of the men. All we care about with the men, the elite men on the Olympic team, we're talking about them. If the men lost, the men's Olympic team, if they lost to a USA team, okay, of all stars who are not on the Olympic team, would anyone care? I mean, it wouldn't be a big deal. They would be focusing on the losing team, not the team that won. But we're doing just the opposite with the WNBA.
I think some of it is marketing. I think at first my stance was why wasn't Caitlin Clark on the Olympic team? But looking at it differently now, considering that most professional sports that participate in the Olympics are usually done right now, like we're talking about basketball, and some other sports, but basketball is the biggest thing. They play during the summer in the WNBA, so why would you take some of your best players or the players that are giving you momentum with marketing away from the WNBA and put them in the pool of the Olympic team? And so I could see why you would keep Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese there to have a bit of a budding rivalry in the WNBA to play, and then keep some great stars aside from the WNBA and put them in the Olympics. That's just a tank.
What do you think, Pags? I know you were really upset Caitlin Clark didn't get in the on the Team USA just because of eyes.
No, I
and
wanted
views.
her on Team Italy. So I'm not sure if she's on Team Italy or not, but it'll be awesome if she is. Here's my thought. I think that Team USA, I think that this is a precursor that although they may have the best team in the Olympics, that they don't play enough well together or well enough together as a team, and that they probably do not get gold. And it will go down in history here as why did you have Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark on this team? Instead, you had an aging star who's well past her prime of Danielle Taurasi, and you could probably say somebody else who probably hasn't come to the forefront yet on how they didn't do very well in the Olympics, and that's going to be the story for all of time. So in 4 years from now, that's what we're going to hear. That Team USA made the biggest mistake of not having Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark on this team, and they're not going to do that again. And then, of course, they're going to win in gold in 4 years, but I don't think they win it this year.
Real quick, Jack, because we don't got time. I got to get in under 2 hours. Joel Embiid calls out Team USA saying, and directly commenting on LeBron James, that maybe they don't win gold because the team's too old. LeBron James, 39. Steph Curry is 36. Drew Holiday is 34. Embiid's 30. And he thinks, well, we saw what happened with Sudan almost beating them. He thinks they may not win gold this year just because of the age. Real quick, I got like 3 minutes. What do you think, Jack? I don't know if you can say in 3 minutes. Try it.
I didn't hear about that remark. I believe if you say said it, he said it. LeBron James took over the game yesterday at the end when it looked like the USA was going to get upset, and he went on a tear at the end, and he basically carried the squad to victory. So it certainly wasn't his age. I don't think age is a factor. Steph Curry is a top 10 player in the NBA still. LeBron James is. Drew Holiday is, contributed mightily to the Celtics winning the NBA championship. We're talking about how they are right now. We're not talking about signing these guys to a contract at their age to an extension. I think if Joel Embiid said it, I think it was probably misquoted to a degree.
So Jack, anyway, he says he doesn't think it's a problem. Give me James real quick. Is it a problem?
Yes, keep your mouth shut. If you're thinking this, don't say that out loud. I agree that, yes, the first time I heard this, when I saw the team collected together, I thought it was too old. But okay. I'm not going to, if I'm on a team, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because the bigger goal is, hey, we want to try to win gold. Let's get together in chemistry. I think he's salty because he wasn't the starter anymore. I think that's part of the problem.
Pags, real quick, under 2 minutes, what do you think? Is Embiid right or is James right?
Well, no, I think that they do have some age and it might catch up to them. But I kind of agree with James in the fact that why did you say it in the first place? Oh, we're too old. So now you're going to start a little bit of a dissension in the locker room. Like that's, I don't understand the purpose of saying it. And I wonder if he said it that, during the same time where he said, hey, I could have been the best player in the world if I didn't have these freak injuries. So, there's a lot of things coming out of Embiid's mouth that I'm not really keen on. And You know what? Be humble. You ain't won a ring yet. So be humble and be happy that you're where you're at right now. So if you're going to cause dissension, then that's your own problem. It has nothing to do with anybody else. It has to do with you.
Pags, that is the most honest, straight up thing you ever said about the 76ers. A heck of a way to end the show. And I agree with you 100%. Have a good one, folks. We got to close out. Have a great Sunday, and we'll see you on Roku at 4 if you're listening on YouTube. Have a great one, folks. We'll see you soon.